Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we take your stack of research, the dense articles, the technical papers, all those corporate announcements, and we boil it all down. We find the essential, fascinating insights you really need to know. Today, we're looking at the power source of the future. This is the battery tech that's really set to end the internal combustion era for good. For, the better part of a decade, the whole conversation around EVs was just one thing: range anxiety. Will I make it to the next charger? But your analysis confirms that this whole psychological barrier, it's pretty much history. The data is pretty clear. Back in 2011, the median EV range was a tiny 73 miles. By 2025, that's jumped to 283 miles. We've largely solved that initial range problem.
We have, and that shows how fast the chemistry has evolved. But it also, it reveals a new challenge. We've sort of reached a temporary ceiling with the current high-performance lithium-ion cells. They generally top out around 250, maybe 280 watt-hours per kilogram. So if EVs are going to go from just being a strong alternative to, well, true road dominance, they need another big leap, a chemical and architectural leap.
And that leap, according to all the research you shared with us, is solid-state batteries, or SSBs. So our mission today is to focus completely on this race, to get them to market. We're looking past the current stuff, the high-density lithium-ion, and straight into what's next. We're going to examine the key players, QuantumScape, CATL, and Rimac, to see who is really ahead and, what metrics prove they're fundamentally changing the game before this decade is out. Okay, so let's unpack that shift. Early lithium-ion cells had some really clear limitations. The liquid electrolyte, for one, was a safety risk. Everyone worried about flammability. And then you had lower energy density and charging times that, well, they still took a while, 30 minutes, maybe more. The data suggests these new SSBs are about to just completely wipe out all those issues at once.
And what's really transformative here is understanding why the solid electrolyte is so much better. In today's batteries, the liquid ones, charging too fast, causes these little metallic spikes, they're called dendrites, to grow. And they grow right through the separator. They cause short circuits, which, reduces the battery's lifespan. And in the worst case scenarios, that's what leads to thermal runaway, to fires. That's why current batteries have to charge more slowly.
So the liquid is the actual weak point here. It's forcing all the other limitations.
Precisely. You replace that flammable liquid with a robust, solid medium. It could be a polymer, a sulfide, an oxide, and you just stop the dendrites cold. This unlocks two massive advantages that are linked together. First, you get vastly improved safety. And second, you can now safely handle these ultra-high energy densities. The prototypes are targeting specific energy densities well above 400 watt-hours per kilogram.
That jump is the key number we have to track. Just to give you some context for that, early lithium-ion cells were around, 100 Wehrmach kilograms? Today's very best is about 250. So jumping to over 400, that isn't just a small range boost. It means a car maker could build a battery pack that's maybe 40% lighter or 40% smaller and still have the exact same range.
And that energy density, when you combine it with the safety, it enables the other key metric, ultrafast charging. Without that risk of dendrites, SSBs are being engineered to go from, say, 10% to 80% state of charge in 5 to 10 minutes. And that is the crucial benchmark for mass adoption because behaviorally, it feels just like pumping gas. The last friction point is just gone.
Okay, we should probably pause here on the two core metrics we're going to hear about. There's gravimetric density, which is watt-hours per kilogram, and volumetric density, which is watt-hours per liter.
Yeah.
Why do both of them matter? Are they for different engineering goals?
That's a really key distinction. So gravimetric density, the weight HKG, that's all about energy versus weight. It's critical for maximizing range, right? And for improving efficiency, say in trucks. It also helps reduce material costs. But volumetric density, the WHL, that's energy versus volume, how much space it takes up. This is essential for packaging. If you're designing a sleek sports car or a compact city EV, every single cubic centimeter counts. High WHL just means you can pack more energy into a smaller space. It changes everything for vehicle design. Right, so to get our heads around the global competition, the research material really points to three players who show the different strategies. You have QuantumScape, they're focused on technical validation, CATL, which is all about volume and scale, and then there's Rimac technology, targeting that ultra-premium, high-end niche.
Let's start with QuantumScape, or QS. They seem to be the leader right now in getting independent, high-profile validation for their tech, especially through that big collaboration they have with PowerCo, that's the Volkswagen Group's battery company.
Their credibility is really built on being transparent and showing long-term performance. The data they've put out shows their cells going past 1,000 cycles, while still retaining an incredible 95% of their original capacity. And that's critical because for you as a consumer, that speaks directly to longevity, to the total cost of ownership. If a battery lasts that long, it just de-risks the whole long-term investment in the vehicle.
And their biggest public demo was that one in September 2025 at IAA Mobility. They showed off their QSE-5 cells, made with their own proprietary Cobra separator process. And they didn't just show it in a lab, they actually put it into a modified Ducati V21L race motorcycle.
Yes, and that was a crucial move. It demonstrated real-world integration. The key numbers from that debut were all about high volumetric energy density, 844 WHL, and, crucially, a fast charge time of 10% to 80% in just over 12 minutes. It's not the 5-minute dream yet, but it's a huge step forward.
And you can see the conviction in the investment that followed. Volkswagen expanded their collaboration. They put up another, up to $131 million in milestone payments. That kind of commitment from a global auto giant. It says a lot about their belief in the timeline for industrialization by the end of the decade.
Absolutely. So now we can pivot from that technical validation to just sheer scale. And that brings us to CATL, the global behemoth of battery manufacturing. Their strategy is fundamentally different. It's about pure volume and really aggressive density targets.
Right. As the world's production heavyweight, CATL is all about maximizing specific energy density for the mass market. The research says they're already testing 20 amp-hour cells, aiming for a really aggressive 500 Wh/kg. I mean, that's an aspirational, 40% jump over what's even available today?
And their timeline is just as aggressive. They're aiming for high volume production as early as 2027. And when they talk about development levels 7, 8, that means the process is very mature. It's past the pilot stage. It's almost ready to be dropped into full-scale assembly lines around the world. CATL is just leveraging their massive experience in cell-to-pack architecture to make sure that once the chemistry is locked, they can flood the market.
Okay, so if QS has the demonstrated performance and CATL is going for max density, our third player, Rimac technology, they seem to be taking a totally different path. They're focusing on the ultra-premium, high-end hypercar niche. Think Bugatti.
That's right. Rimac is at a more intermediate development level, and their production target is further out, around 2030. But they are all about bespoke performance. Their current 100 kilowatt prototype gets about 260 Wh/kg, and this is important. That density is comparable to today's best liquid lithium-ion cells, not those 400-plus targets.
Wait a minute. If their density is basically the same as what we have now, how are they even a solid-state contender? Are they just showing off some kind of charging trick?
That's a great question, and it's because they are using that non-flammable solid electrolyte to just push the charging envelope regardless of the starting density. Their unique selling point is speed. An ultra-fast charge from 10% to 80% in just 6.5 minutes. They do this by pairing the safety benefit of the SSB with extremely sophisticated lightweight e-axles and advanced cooling. It just maximizes how much power the battery can accept.
So their strategy is all about volumetric density and insane speed for that high-end market. The market where cost isn't an issue and packaging is everything. So they're proving that SSBs can deliver performance metrics, specifically charging speed, that are just impossible with today's liquid tech, even if their gravimetric density needs to catch up later.
So we've established the technology is maturing. We have multiple major players, Toyota, QS, CATL, all targeting volume production before 2030. If we connect that back to the bigger picture, the implications for the mass market are, well, they're enormous.
So what does this tech shift mean for EV development? It's more than just adding a few miles of range, right? How do SSBs really change the entire value proposition of an electric car?
Well, they essentially eliminate the two remaining non-cost barriers to mass EV adoption. That's charging time parity and sustained battery health. The 5 to 10 minute charge time we talked about, that's basically indistinguishable from a stop at the gas station. And that level of convenience just removes the last major psychological hurdle for consumers.
And the better cycle, life like QuantumScape's 1,000 cycles with 95% capacity, that dramatically lowers the total cost of ownership, the TCO.
Exactly. For commercial fleets or anyone who drives a lot, battery replacement is a huge potential expense. SSBs promise a durability and longevity that just far exceeds current batteries. It makes them ideal for heavy use, extending the vehicle's economic life. And this combination of convenience and lower TCO, it's going to combine powerfully with policy drivers.
We're already seeing those. You've got major mandates, like in the EU and California, targeting a phase-out of new internal combustion engine sales by 2035. This technological leap just cements that trajectory. I mean, look at the numbers. Global EV sales went from 120,000 in 2012 to 14 million in 2023. SSBs are going to accelerate that dominance exponentially, especially when you think about things like autonomous driving and grid stabilization.
And that's where the ecosystem synergy becomes so critical because SSBs are safer, more energy dense, and charge faster. They are the perfect power platform for all these advanced mobility services. They enable much better synergy with autonomous driving platforms, the ones being piloted by Waymo, Cruise, Baidu. Those services require consistent, high density, reliable power, basically 247.
And crucially, SSBs really boost the viability of vehicle-to-grid V2G adoption.
Yes. You think about the high safety, the long cycle life, and the rapid power transfer of SSBs. They transform the EV into a really reliable, distributed energy storage asset. Millions of V2G-enabled EVs could feed power back into the grid during peak demand. That stabilizes our energy infrastructure, especially in a future with more intermittent renewables like solar and wind. That's a true game changer for grid resilience.
Okay, so the technological forecast looks pretty sunny. High-density, fast-charging batteries are on the horizon. But we know the EV transition is structurally really complex. If the technology is being solved, what stops us from just swapping every gas car with an EV next year? Even with SSBs coming, what are the major structural issues still on the table in 2025?
The main barriers that remain are geopolitical and infrastructural, and they both feed into the core issue of global affordability. First, the entire transition, SSBs included, is still hostage to critical material vulnerability.
And those supply chains are still so heavily concentrated in just a few places, which means geopolitical risk and price volatility are just baked into the system.
That's the vulnerability right there. The raw materials, the lithium, cobalt, nickel, they're all sourced from a very narrow set of places. For instance, 70% of the world's cobalt comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo. And even after you dig it up, the processing is centralized. China controls over 60% of global lithium refining.
So even if CATL or QuantumScape completely perfects the chemistry, any instability or trade tension in one of those key regions could create a massive bottleneck. It would drive up the cost of the final SSB cell and just make it that much harder for the tech to become democratized globally.
Exactly. And the second major hurdle, which links directly to cost, is infrastructure inequality. This technological leak to solid state is fantastic for mature markets, but it doesn't solve the fundamental problem of unequal access to electricity and charging in emerging economies.
Yeah, the sources lay out this contrast so starkly. Western Europe and China, they've invested heavily. They have, 12 to 16 public chargers for every 100 EVs on the road? That density supports mass adoption. It completely gets rid of range anxiety.
But then you look at the global south. 40% of the world's population, especially in rural regions and emerging markets, still lacks reliable public charging. Sub-Saharan Africa, for example, has fewer than one public charger for every 100 EVs.
That is just a staggering gap. And it's not just the number of chargers. The affordability barrier makes it even worse. EVs, even with cheaper SSBs eventually, have a really high initial price compared to local incomes in these markets. So if you can't afford the car and you can't rely on the infrastructure, this whole amazing technological leap is essentially irrelevant to you.
And until we address that infrastructure gap and couple it with policies and financial support that bring down that initial sticker price in low-income countries, the EV transition just won't be truly global. We risk creating a two-tiered system where the developed world gets 5-minute charging and the global south gets left behind. #HowTrout.
What a monumental journey we've covered today. I mean, we've gone from that meager 73-mile median range back in 2011 all the way to prototypes hitting 400 plus WHKG and charging in under 7 minutes. The key takeaway for you is this. The impending shift from liquid lithium-ion to solid state is not just some incremental improvement. It's a technological chasm being crossed, and it fundamentally changes the EV value proposition from a viable alternative to, well, the inevitable market default.
And that technological leap creates a really interesting strategic tension going forward. So given that affordability in emerging markets is still a huge structural barrier, will the race for super premium SSB performance, like Rimac's focus on 6.5-minute charges for hypercars, will that actually delay the availability of lower cost, more democratizing SSB tech? Or will the sheer scale, the volume focus, and the global supply chain mastery of a player like CATL win that battle first and force the technology to become affordable for true global adoption?
That is the pivotal question we'll all be tracking as those production timelines get closer to the end of the decade. Thank you so much for sharing your sources and joining us for this deep dive into the battery revolution that's really set to redefine transportation. You can follow our channel for more curated explorations into complex topics. We'll see you next time.